I'm Theron Q Ramacharaka. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back, as the case may be. If you like this video, please give it a thumb up. And if you like the channel and haven't subscribed to it already, then please do so now. Also, click on the notification bell and share the joy of this channel. Those things having been said, let's move to talk about the turning point involving the turning point in human history, involving fire. The discovery of how to make and control fire. It is unknown exactly when and where and how this occurred. Sometime around 400,000 years ago. But this goes back to somewhere within 700,000 years ago and 120,000 years ago. So we pick a midpoint, say around 400,000 years ago. And where? Evidence indicates that it might have taken place first somewhere in the area we now call Kenya, Africa. And how this happened? We don't really know. How could we know? But it looks like, there's speculation. Speculation suggests that at first there was the ability to, it was noticed that there were advantages to fire. Fire cleared the landscape, making crop growth more easy, or fresh growth, allowing for better foraging for food. Then most likely there came the ability to preserve fire that perhaps followed a lightning storm by introducing dung into the fire area, which would then slow burn, and it could be used. So most likely the question slowly arose, can I do that? Can I make that happen like that? Also, most likely, evidence suggests that fire was the creation and control of fire, the creation and consequent control of it, didn't happen just all in one spot. It seems to have, evidence shows that this capacity, this event, took place maybe around the same time as one another, like give or take 100,000 years, in different parts of the world. Have you heard of the 100th monkey thing? It seems that once 100 people, individually, separately, uniquely, get an idea or do a certain thing, then it suddenly spreads like wildfire, so to speak. Well, it appears, that certain ideas, revolutions in human thought, may have an origin in a specific location on the planet, but right around the same time, the same thing happens elsewhere, in various places, more than one place at a time. Although it can, in general, be pinpointed, such an event can be pinpointed to have its first appearance in some specific place, or with some specific person or groups of people. All right. That out of the way. Let's take a somewhat deeper look at this thing. Okay. we've seen maybe how the idea to create fire, for humans to make fire, probably a homo erectus event, all right, early Stone Age event. Well, what did people think about fire back then? And look, even today, as we stand and witness a fire, or maybe sit and witness a fire in our little fireplace in our living room or a den at home, or if we're watching a fire, a building on fire or a wildfire outdoors, we sometimes hear said or ourselves say, man, that seems to be alive, doesn't it? Doesn't it, Tom? It seems to be alive, or that fire has a life of its own. Look at it. I mean, it creates heat, light, and it moves. Not only spreads, but the flames move. It looks alive, doesn't it? It seems to be alive. Well, what about our homo erectus relatives back then? What did they take it to be with respect to being alive? The sun. What did they think about that? A living being that sustained our lives? Create heat and light? A heavenly body? Life? What about fire? Heat and light? A renewer? Something that comes along, wipes out the old, allows for the new. Constructive and destructive at the same time. Creating turning points, little turning points. Alive? I think so. To them, a living thing. A living thing. Of what nature? Not animal, not plant, not mineral, although these distinctions were probably not clearly stated back then, clearly mentally delineated from one another back then, maybe. Still, fire, a living being, but of what nature? If there's a fire over there today, and yesterday there was one over there, is it the same fire? Is it a different fire? Is it the same being showing up again? Or is it a different one of the same kind? Why is it there now? And was over there yesterday. Alive. Now, today, we look at fire, what we think of is a physical change taking place. It's not really a chemical transaction or or event taking place. It's a physical one taking place. We see it. It happens rapidly. Things go up in flames. And what's left is chars by way of fire. The fire is the agent of this physical transformation. We can talk about the oxygen involved. We can talk about, the accelerator, the fire accelerator, the agent of acceleration to get the fire going. The spark, the initial spark. We can talk about spontaneous combustion. But there's no concept of life in those explanations, although those explanations point to facts of the matter. The idea of life isn't really there. But when we see fire and speculate or conjecture or just point out, it seems to be alive. Seems to have a life of its own. A hint of that recognition has come to the fore of our consciousness, of our awareness, of our observation, of our perception, as opposed to the things around the fire or the things that are on fire, unless it's a forest on fire. It's a living forest, living trees, living plants, living animals, okay. But except for that, what's coming to the front of our minds here is the notion that the fire seems to have a life of its own. Like, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Because other stuff doesn't appear that way. It's this fire that does right now. We pointed out, maybe to one another, my goodness, look at those flames. They just seem to have a life of their own. It looks alive. It looks alive. We pointed out because that's different. That's something noticeable. It's like as in contrast to these other things that just don't appear to be that way at all. So we're pointing out something unique about the fire at the moment. But does this mean that those other things that do not seem to be that way at the moment have no life? Or is it just that fire is so noticeably living that's what comes to it? That's what comes to mind. That's the one that makes it to the front of our perception at the moment. But the rest is the same way. It just doesn't come to the front burner of our minds right then. I suggest here that in the least, fire stands as an example that's rather noticeable of what I take to be the fact that all the universe is alive. I'm Theron Q Ramacharaka. Well, one last thing. Wouldn't that be an interesting turning point for many of us, for the world, to once again, for the main of humanity, to perceive that all the universe is alive. I'm Theron Q Ramacharaka. Like, subscribe, get notified, share, and be well.